Hi, welcome to Organ Practice. This week, I want to tell you a little bit about philosophy of organ building and style and what kind of instrument I'm playing. So when organs were developed in Germany, and I'm speaking in very broad strokes here, which is a little bit unfair, but it's the way that we sort of learn, is by learning things in broad strokes and then honing them down and finding out it's a little more complicated than I'm telling you right now. But the German composers were really interested in counterpoint, that is, in setting two independent lines off of, in contrast to each other, but they're happening at the same time. It's one of the ideals of Western music, that each part is able to function in freedom while we're doing the same thing. So allowing each individual part enough freedom to work in its own way, but still working with the other parts. Because of this, and the German way of organ building, they sort of built these different manuals on the organ, and each manual was relatively equal in strength to the others. And so they were independent so that you could hear that counterpoint. France was more concerned with just pure sound in some ways and how you could combine those sounds together with all of the other sounds. Now, normally then, on a German organ, you have this middle one that we call the Great Manual, right? And then I have a manual up here called the Swell Manual, and then a Choir Manual. And I can take any of the sounds from the swell, like this, like let's say I have a reed that I like, and I can put a coupler on and move that down and play that same sound down here, and maybe combine it with a sound that I like over here that I don't have on something else. And I can take all the sounds from these and dump them into the middle somewhere so that I can play sounds from all the different manuals together on the middle manual. In the French way of building organs, they put the couplers in different orders so that their swell manual was on the top, and you could bring those sounds down to this manual, and you can bring those sounds all the way down to the loudest manual, which was on the bottom. So German's loudest manual that you can bring all the other sounds to is in the middle. French, loudest sound on the bottom. Okay. So in America in the 1950s and 60s, when a lot of our current organs were being built, organs like this one were what they called eclectic builds. And so they were trying to build organs that could play every kind of music that there is, French, German, equally well. What they sort of wound up doing is building instruments that are equally bad at playing everything. But that being aside, you run into some problems because they went with a basic German design where the middle manual is the loudest manual. But then sometimes when you're playing French repertoire and it's designed to jump here to here to here, you can get into awkward positions, because if you're playing French music and you have to cross hands somehow, this is not too bad to do. But if you're playing it on a German organ, then sometimes the hands get crossed into awkward positions. So then people came along in the 80s and afterwards when electronics got a little more advanced, and they said, well, we can actually make these organs even do that. Even switch between German and French style manuals. So that's what we have here today. So I can put on a sound and flip some buttons up here, and I switch my manuals around from German style, which it normally is in, to French style, so that I have this sound, and then I can add to it here, and then add to it again here, so that the loudest manual is down on the bottom. Okay, and you can imagine the different, it sort of winds up giving me a softer, medium loud, and loudest volume. And this week I'm working on litanies by Alain, a French composer, and I'll show you how bad my French is, but I'll tell you what this piece is about. He writes at the top, Quand l'âme chrétienne ne trouve plus de mots nouveaux dans la détresse pour implorer la miséricorde de Dieu. Okay, so that says when the Christian soul can't find new words in its distress to implore God for mercy, elle répète sans cesse la même invocation avec une foi vehement. It repeats without ceasing the same invocation, the same prayer, with a vehement faith. La raison atteint sa limite. Reason reaches its limit. Seule la foi poursuit son ascension. Only faith continues to rise. And so he takes this as his statement, and basically we're going to take a phrase and repeat it over and over again throughout this whole piece. And I just want to show you how the manuals work, because I can use them in different combinations when he wants to bring out this repeated phrase. So, for example, one option would be to have the melody on the loudest and then everything else being played on the second loudest so that you can hear it. Fine, right? Then he can do it if you want to go even louder. Let's play it all on the loudest manual. Fine, all right. Next one is an option. What if I want the melody to be lower but on the loudest manual, and then the accompaniment on the second loudest manual? A lot of the practicing that you wind up doing is learning which manuals you're playing different things on. And that moment of hesitation there that I had was because I forgot for a second which hands go where, even though it says in the score occasionally you forget even though you're practicing. So by doing these three different layers of volume, I can move the melody around, and even later on in the piece I'll play it in my feet like this. You can't really hear it. And organists that know this piece, I'm skipping that terrible passage where I make up the notes in the left hand. You know what I'm talking about. Okay, so that's the difference between French and German style playing, and how it works on modern organs when we can flip back and forth between the two of them. Thanks for listening.